Hello there, world. Did you miss us? Welcome back to the There Will Be Geek podcast. Oh, fuck this.
We should make a blooper reel one day.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
We're doing it now.
And welcome back to the There Will Be Geek podcast. On my right we have...
This is Kev.
And on my left we have...
Chani.
And I'm Mike, and welcome us back once again. We've taken a little bit of a break over the last month or so, for those of you who've been very observant and been wondering where the hell the next podcast is. But hopefully very soon we will start to have things a little bit more regular and on schedule. But here we are in Melbourne, and the spring is springing. The pigeons are being liberally poisoned in the park, to quote Mr. Lehrer, and all is right with our world. What have you been up to over the winter break then, Cav?
For me, a combination of a few different things. A bit of gaming, a bit of Forza Horizon 3, which is fucking great. Some PES 2017, and more WoW. Lots more WoW. Help me. Help. I'm trapped. As for movies, revisited LA Confidential, the passing of Curtis Hanson a few weeks ago. Revisited that movie, which is fucking excellent. And just doing a lot of writing, working on a super secret project, which is going to say super secret for a little while longer, until I work out what the hell I'm doing. Then you'll all know about it.
I can't wait. I'm waiting with the very least bated breath and possibly also trapped breath as well. Chani, how about you? What was your winter break like?
It was cold for one. It was also very busy because I moved home. I found a place close to work, which was awesome. And I've also been overseas. I went over the pond and visited New York for work, which was very interesting, but also very tiring. For those who don't know, it takes about 24 hours to fly from Melbourne to New York City. My ass was sore. Very sore.
And not in the good way.
No, and not in the good way. But it was very fun. I got to catch up with people I haven't seen in a while. I got sick while I was there, so that was a bit shitty. But other than that, I had a great time. And it was just coming out of summer there too. So the weather was absolutely fantastic, except for one section where it just pissed down rain, like torrential rain, for about half an hour. And that was it.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, my winter break was spent doing a variety of different things. I recently went on a trip to Sydney with my lovely Mrs. Kerry because it was our anniversary, and it's the countdown for a year to our wedding, which is going to be next year on our anniversary.
Woo!
Yes. And we had a good time, although we didn't gamble for the fact that we happened to be in Sydney at the same time as almost everybody else in Footscray was, because there was a semi-final of the AFL. So all of the rest of Footscray was there to watch the Footscray beat Greater Western Sydney. Other than that, well, I thoroughly enjoyed being here in Footscray last week when it went absolutely mental because the Western Bulldogs won the grand final. Now, granted, I'm well aware that a lot of our listeners really couldn't give a rat's ass about any form of organised sport. To which I say, fair enough, that's your thing. I love it. I really do. And I'm really pleased to have finally kind of a little bit caught the bug for Australian rules football, because I've been somewhat agnostic about it over the last few years, but watching the Western Bulldogs kind of fight their way towards the grand final this year has been a real kind of underdog success story, and that's enough to get anyone really kind of invested in the whole thing. So that's been really good. I also caught some films as well. I caught Star Trek Beyond, finally, last week, and it was well worth the wait. Really, really enjoyed it. Okay, moving on to our Thimble of Win. Chani, what's your Thimble of Win for this week?
Wow. my Thimble of Win is obviously going to be Bioshock. The HD collection is out. Everyone should get it, even if you've played it before. Just buy it again. It's HD and it's so pretty and it's Rapture and it's just... Also, on the subject of Bioshock, I went op shopping with a friend of mine, and while we were op shopping, I found, well, he found, but I got to buy it, was the limited edition copy of Bioshock 2 for PC, but it was the most awesome one that comes with the vinyl.
Okay.
It has a vinyl record.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Like a full-size LP?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
like
amazing.
LP. It is absolutely beautiful. Obviously, I can't play it because I don't have a record player, but I already know the soundtrack, and it's
So carry on going to an op shop. I'm sure you'll find one at some point.
And it's absolutely fantastic. And I picked it up for $50.
Nice.
So it's a limited edition. It's got like the artwork book in it. It's got the vinyl. I'm really stoked about the vinyl because, one, I'm a collector of all things Bioshock, but also it was $50 for the whole thing, and now those vinyls go for like $80 on their own. Like, they're a bit of a collector's piece. So that's mum winning right there.
Is the vinyl in good condition?
I haven't actually put it out to have a look at it, but judging by the rest of the collection and how that is in pretty good nick, I'd say, yeah, it probably is. But yeah, I haven't pulled it out because obviously I'm not going to play it on anything.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
I don't know how to handle a vinyl properly. I was a little bit scared.
That's all right. Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Score.
I've got any time when you find something really awesome in an op shop, it's always really cool. And for those of us who are listening overseas, basically an op shop is Australia's equivalent of a charity shop in the UK or possibly a thrift store over in the US.
Thank you, Macklemore.
Anyway, Cav, what about your Thimble of Win?
So mine is a couple of announcements made by Netflix over the last week or two about a couple of really interesting sounding movies that they're either distributing or actually basically paying for. The first is Mute, the next film from Duncan Jones, the artist formerly known as Zowie Bowie. Not much is known about it. All it's known is that he's going back to sci-fi, and it's going to be in the same world as Moon, his first film, which is a fucking fantastic film. He's had a great record so far. Moon, I think, is a classic.
Is that the one with Sam Rockwell in
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
I love that movie!
Awesome movie. And then he made Source Code and Warcraft, which were both really
I
solid.
love Source Code as well.
So yeah, he's gotten off to a great start, and he's apparently been trying for years to make this thing. So apparently they're shooting now. The other film is Mascots from Christopher Guest, who some of you may know as Nigel Tufnell from Spinal Tap, which is one of my favourite movies. He's a bit of a legend. He's made a lot of improvised comedy films like Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show.
Mighty Wind.
Best in Show's hilarious.
Yeah. He's kind of, I'd say, I've never been big on heroes, but comedy-wise, he's one of the ones who's up there for me. I think he's sort of, no one's done improv and comedy as well as he does it, because it's very story-centric, very character-centric.
Are you aware of the fact that he is actually, and has been at least once, a sitting member of the House of Lords?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, that's just fancy.
I know.
And this one's coming out on the 13th of October, so I'm very excited about that one. So, yeah, just a couple of really cool things coming from Netflix soon.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds absolutely wonderful. I've got to say, I've been recently watching Luke Cage on Netflix, and I have absolutely loved it. We're only up to about episode 5, so we're kind of doing a little bit at a time. We're not getting it all at once. I think we've found so far that watching their Marvel stuff, same with Jessica Jones and Daredevil, it's marathonable, I'm sure, but we can't do more than about maybe 2 episodes or so at a time because it's just that intense. And Luke Cage has been absolutely phenomenal so far. Well, my Thimble of Win for this week isn't Luke Cage, but it is a book. It's a book that came out, I think, last year sometime. I've actually just bought a copy for Cav's birthday. And yeah.
Happy birthday, Cal.
I'm old.
Yes, well, considering the fact that I was fairly old, or not all that long ago either, we're not going to make too much of that.
I'm still young.
Yes.
Shut up.
Get off my lawn.
I'll throw my colostomy bag at you.
If you're lucky, he'll fill it first.
Think of it as one big soggy nunchuck.
Oh,
That's so gross. Oh.
And good night.
That's it. Podcast
Okay.
is done.
No, this book is a book which I've had an eye on. I suddenly saw copies in the bookstore of our favourite local cinema, the Sun Theatre in Yarraville, and it's Life Moves Pretty Fast by Hadley Freeman, who works for The Guardian, and it's basically her chronicle of her obsession with 80s movies. So it's got things like references to The Princess Bride. We're talking When Harry Met Sally. Obviously, the quote itself comes from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Ghostbusters is in there. Top Gun is in there. And I remember reading an extract of it when it was first published and being very intrigued by the whole premise. And given that both myself and Cav were kids who grew up in the 80s, and these movies were a large defining chunk of our media and pop culture childhoods, I'm really looking forward to reading this, and I'm also very, very keen to know what Cav thinks about this later on, so we may refer back to this in a future podcast.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading it. I mean, from what I've seen just from thumbing through it so far, it's not just sort of a gimmick thing. It looks like there's some actual real sort of in-depth criticism going on, which it would be nice to see more of with the movies of that era. I mean, like I said to Mike when I first saw the book, first thing I noticed was footnotes, and I guess it's my sort of freelance writing background. Whenever you see footnotes, you know the author isn't fucking around.
Yeah.
Actually, more of that later on.
So yeah, looking very cool.
So, on to the main thrust of today's work. At some point or another, many of you will have played this game, and it may well have involved just simply sitting in a circle. It may well have involved a bottle
Alcohol.
that spins. Yeah, it may well have involved alcohol, certainly. The game we're about to play here is something that we may well refer back to later on as well, and every so often revisit. It is Never Ever Have I Ever. Now, the principle is simple. Not everyone in the geek universe and pulp culture world is into everything else. Now, there are some people who will go down a particular road with regards to British sci-fi and will say, for example, love Doctor Who and love Blake Seven but hate the tripods. There may be people who are gamers who will go for particular areas but not necessarily like hentai or not necessarily like anime. There are people who may well not necessarily be into zombie movies but absolutely adore Hello Kitty or any number of different other things. So, what we figured we'd do is each one of us was set a challenge. That challenge was to try something that we hadn't got into. Now, when we first looked at this, we were a little bit surprised at some of the results. And the very first one we're going to go for is one that really surprised me because honestly I thought everyone got on this train a long time ago, and that's Chani. So, Chani, what had you never done before?
I almost feel ashamed to say it, but now I don't longer have to say it because I had never read a Terry Pratchett book before. And apparently this is a big thing because I'm quite an avid reader. I read like a lot, being on trains and trams, and plus I just love reading. So it kind of shocked Mike a little bit when he found out that I'd never read a Terry Pratchett book before.
Well, also specifically as well, because this is something that, given what I know about your interest with regards to pop culture and gaming and books and movies and videos and so on and so forth, that I was surprised that you hadn't encountered this already.
Yeah, I knew there was like an author out there called Terry Pratchett and he had like a metric fuck ton of books, but I'd never actually kind of went, oh yeah, I should read those. I think it was because there were so many of them. I had no idea where to start. Do I start with the first book that he published and then go, chronologically, or are there like stories that I need to follow, or are there different sets of the books? Or I wasn't really sure where to go, but you helped me with that, Mike, didn't you?
Yes, and I started you at the same point that a lot of people start with this. And there's certainly the point that I started, which was with the book Mort. So, what did you think?
It was great! I loved it! Oh, it was so good! It was a different style of writing that I hadn't read before, because usually with books, you've got chapters and things are all going around in different places, but this book, it doesn't have any chapters whatsoever. There's no breakage in the story. It's just one continuous thing, which I didn't actually mind. Like, I just kept on reading, and I didn't even kind of notice that there weren't chapters. Like, I didn't find myself like anticipating like, oh, it's going to break here or whatever. And had a very nice flow to it, which I really, really enjoyed. And as Cav said before about the importantness of information from authors, there were footnotes, which was great because a lot of the stuff in the book is just made up and weird and you need that kind of explanation. So I really, really enjoyed that. And there were other bits in the book as well, which I didn't realize how much of an influence like Terry Pratchett had in like other areas. Like there's this one bit in the book where there are these monks and they're trying to look for God, I think it is. And they've got like a giant telescope and they're out searching, like there's always someone there searching for God in space. And it instantly clicked with me that this reminded me of a Futurama episode where there was a section where they were looking for Bender in space, and they had monks who were searching for God in space. And I had no idea that that was a Terry Pratchett reference, that it wasn't just an original funny idea, it had actually been done before. And I was like, that's really cool. Like there were all these little bits and pieces that I recognized from other TV shows or other books, or, you know, even songs probably with things. So yeah, it was really good. And I liked the feel of the story as well, because there's this urgency about it, because you know that time is running out. Like, I'm going to try and avoid spoilers, so I won't be discussing the plot too much in case anyone wants to go out and read it, which I recommend that you do. But there are things that are happening, and in my head I'm trying to calculate, how is this all going to work out? Like, I can't figure it out. Like, I can't see a clear path to where this is going. And I'm one of those people who will try to work out movies and stuff like in the first half an hour by going, oh yeah, I reckon that's the murderer, or this person's going to do this or whatever. But I couldn't do that with this book because it is so random.
Yeah.
It has like the weirdest things in it.
But at the same time, it's not entirely random, because everything is just kind of, it seems to go off at random tangents, but they all end up fitting together and meshing beautifully.
It really does. Like, it blew me away. It really did. And the fact that Death loves cats, that got me. I feel like Death is my bro now. Like, anyone who loves cats is alright by me.
Yeah, I can see that. I think one of the reasons why I started you off with Mort specifically here is the first three books in the series are The Colour of Magic, The Light Fantastic, and Equal Rights. Now, in The Colour of Magic, it's more like a collection of short stories of the adventures of Rincewind the Wizard, who is very much the worst wizard on the whole of the disc. And the first couple of books are basically, that's what's going on there. It's mostly to do with like the adventures of Rincewind, and it kind of loosely coalesces together. Equal Rights is a very interesting idea about a girl becoming a wizard, and it kind of goes there. But it's Mort's the first time where you really have... It's the first book where you start to have that feel of, okay, this is the world, here we are. So it's there in an established setting, and it's the first one that really tells its own story, but it also lays a path for everything else. Because, for example, with Equal Rights, you don't get the central character back very much at all. I think you get her back in maybe one book quite a while later on.
Okay.
Whereas one of the things you find with the Discworld is that there are characters that are revisited time and again. So, for example, Death is in every single Discworld book.
Yeah.
But he is also somebody who, as a character, has his own particular arc and development throughout the series. And the same thing you will get with the Lanka Witches of Esme Weatherwax and Nanny Ogg and Agnes Nitt.
Okay.
And so on and so forth, and Magrat. And so there are characters who are constantly revisited and kind of enrich the whole universe that's there. And this is the first time you really start to see that, because a lot of... Rincewind, obviously, is somebody who comes back time and time again, but the first couple of books, at some point you will probably get to the series where you go, you know what, I'm going to go and have a look at those, and you'll understand they don't feel quite the same, whereas Mort is the first point where you start to really have what feels like Pratchett for a large chunk of the rest of the series. What were your thoughts on Pratchett when you first encountered him?
I've read very little, actually. I read more years and years ago. I read The Colour of Magic, but not much since then.
look, I mean, at the moment, if you were to look over, we're recording this at my house, and you can see the bookshelves just over there. And right now, I mean, it was an on. It was for many years, whilst Terry Pratchett was still with us. It was the go-to Christmas present for myself and my dad. He'd buy me a copy, I'd buy him a copy, and that was that. So we were very much. It was a case of, fair enough, nice and easy done. And so you can see, like, there's several hardback editions from the last few years. There's about 10 or so of them there.
Like, I found like 13 or something at the moment. There's 14 in the book that's on the bed.
Yeah, and there's a few others over there as well. But bear in mind, the size of Terry Pratchett's collection, in terms of what he's written, there's a lot more out there, and I still need to get hold of copies of all of them, frankly.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really, really glad we've taken you down this path.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep continuing on with it because, yeah, I really, really enjoyed more. Like, it was just a great book, and like the characters as well. Like, I loved more. And in the book, Death speaks in a certain way, which is like, it's not the way that he says things, but the way it's actually printed in the book. He actually, whenever Death speaks, it's all in capitals, which it made it humorous, and it also gave like a different spin on it because I haven't seen that kind of thing in a book before, which was great. So a few weeks ago, I was at another op shop. I was just killing some time before I had an appointment, and I was in like a suburb I'd never been to before. So I just popped on in, and I immediately go to the books because I'm a book collector. I love collecting books, obviously. And there was a copy of the next kind of death book called Reaper Man. And it was in there, and it was in perfect nick. Spine hadn't even been cracked. And I got it for 50 cents.
That is
cool.
Yeah, that is pretty incredible.
That was amazing. And so I started reading that one, and that's already like got me, and I'm like, oh my god, how is this working? Like, would that actually happen? Or like, this isn't, well, I guess it's not a new spin on the themes that are covered in it. Like, obviously this has happened like, you know, years and years and years and years ago, before all like, you know, zombie hype and death hype and all that happened. But it's just blown me away, and I'm really enjoying it. I even downloaded like an image, like this giant chart that like plots out all of these books, and like these ones are the death ones that you should read like this way, and then there's these ones that correlate together, and I'm like, all right, cool. So yep, I'm gonna just send that out to people and say, this is my Christmas wish list. Just cross them off as I go.
That's a good call. Oh, I'm really thrilled. Well, you know what? There's even, were you to be able to find them, although I'm not sure whether or not you've got equipment that could play them easily, there's even a couple of Discworld games.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was younger, there was like a TV series or something. Yeah. I think it was about the Weird Sisters.
There was, what happened was Cosgrove Hall, so that's the same team that were behind Count Duckula and Danger Mouse, and they're an animation studio in the UK. They did, for Channel 4, 3 animated movies. I think it was 3. I know they did Soul Music and Weird Sisters.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the other one was, if they did another one. But also there were some Sky live action versions. So Sky Television, the British equivalent of Foxtel here in Australia, they commissioned some Christmas drama series. So they did The Hogfather, and they have also done The Colour of Magic, and they also did, I believe, Going Postal as well. To be honest with you, the live action adaptations have been a bit hit and miss, but the cartoon versions by Cosgrove Hall were brilliant. Really, really well realised.
I was reading as well up about it because, you know, that's what I do. Like, if I find like a TV show or a book or a movie that I like, I kind of just go out and read as much as I can about it because I want to know all the little ins and outs. And this is why I'm an achievement hall with games. I have to find out every single little thing and read all the stuff about it. But apparently there's a graphic novel version of Mort as well that came out in like the 90s. I'm like, I need to see this, because I'd love to see what kind of style it's actually drawn in, and whether it matches like the kind of imagery I have in my head. And there was also, you know, some stage adaptations of it, like theatre versions of Mort as well. There was like the Germans did it, and then in the UK as well. And I'm like, it'd be cool if I could find like some YouTube image, like videos of it and check that out too, because I'm like, it's pretty damn cool.
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled to have sent you down this road.
Yeah.
It's always really nice to see somebody go down a path that you've trodden before and you thought was an amazing journey to go on. So it's so nice as well to find somebody so unexpectedly not exposed to this who jumps in with both feet and really embraces the whole world of it. Now, for the next one, I don't know that Cav necessarily has jumped in with both feet, but I know he's dipped his toe in the water.
Yeah, this is kind of... How would you put it? Never have I ever, except that time, one time previously that I...
That one time in college?
Yeah, so I watched the first series of the rebooted Doctor Who. Now, I have a weird history with Doctor Who. It's always been a bit of a conundrum to me. I've never quite been able to get into it. And it's been one of those things where I've never quite been able to work out why. Because it's science fiction, it's got the humour, it's got that sort of idiosyncratic edge to it, which is all things that, I mean, on paper, should be right up my alley. And for some reason, I've tried getting into it a couple of times in the past, never quite could. Now, of course, our esteemed co-host here is a complete raving Doctor Who nut.
Yes, that would be me.
Yeah.
I've lost my nuttiness about recent developments in the show.
And it got me thinking, I wanted to sort of go back to it again and see how I felt. And so this was the first reboot series with Christopher Eccleston playing the Doctor. I can say that I really enjoyed the hell out of it. Still a little bit conflicted. And I think sort of my thoughts going on from I started thinking, well, why is this? Because again, I couldn't work out why. All the elements were there.
So this is just like a gut reaction. You're in a,
Yeah.
I should love this. I'm really, on an intellectual level, I'm really engaging with this as much as possible. I really like this. I can analyse the stories and kind of get on board with a lot of what they're trying to do, but it's just not clicking with me.
Maybe you had like a traumatic experience when you watched it like that first time, maybe a little bit in college. And it's just like permanently scarred you somehow on a subconscious level.
I'm flashing back to 8 years old and the park now with this guy with a huge scarf. Oh, shit. Yeah, so it's always been really weird for me, you know? It's always been something on paper just seems to have been perfect and somehow I've never quite connected with it. I mean, look, there's a lot of this rebooted series I really like. I really wound up loving Eccleston's portrayal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in the beginning it was a little weird because the thing, on the surface, Eccleston seemed like a weird choice for the Doctor because... Let's face it, the classic Doctor we know is very sort of eccentric.
Yeah.
Very sort of out there.
Very colourful as well, too.
Very colourful, yeah. And then you've got Christopher Eccleston, who, let's face it, has a face like a brick shithouse and usually a temperament to match.
Hang on, lots of planets have a north.
Really good actor. But, I mean, on the surface, the last person you'd think would suit Doctor Who.
Seems like the emo Doctor.
Yeah, in a way.
Now, this is the thing. I mean, from my mind, when the series was rebooted, I was ridiculously happy. I mean, cards on the table, I have been a Doctor Who fan for a very, very, very long time, which was fostered in no small part to my very, very dear friend back in the UK, Shinju, who kind of... inducted me into the whole world of Doctor Who by showing me an awful lot and going through it in depth and showing me like various different old series that he had on video and talking about the filming, how it was done, all of the details. It was my real kind of my obsession with Doctor Who came from that period of time, and that was my introduction to the world of geek culture and popular culture and the kind of the mechanisms behind the scenes of it all. When it was Eccleston that was announced, I was absolutely thrilled because he's an actor who I've always really, really highly rated, and particularly with his previous work with Russell T Davies and things like The Second Coming, but also, I mean, he'd been in any number of different films. His performances in Our Friends in the North back in the 90s were wonderful. Yeah. And he is somebody who I trusted, and it was that moment of, you know what? This shows they're not messing about. They're taking this seriously because it was such a departure from what you'd expect the Doctor to be, and it was oh, this is a reinvention. And I was really pleased with that.
Yeah, because at first, I mean, you'd see sort of elements of the colourful, wacky Doctor in his performance, and it just didn't feel right. because there's this very sort of intense, grim-looking guy acting wacky, and it felt a bit dissonant. But as the series went on, they did a really good job of sort of bringing that intensity into the Doctor, especially the Time War stuff and his ongoing sort of... He's almost got this sort of PTSD thing going on where, we find out that he's done this thing back during this Time War that, supposedly wiped out the Daleks, and it was this horrible act we don't really learn much about. And he's sort of scarred from that.
Yeah, he's got his own internal struggle going on with what he did and
Yeah.
the greater good or...
And the loneliness.
Yeah.
Because at this point, as far as he knows, he's also wiped out the Time Lords as well, and he is alone in the universe in a way that it's almost not possible for anyone to truly comprehend.
Yeah.
Being the only one of his species left, as far as he knows.
And about midway through the series, when he discovers that the Daleks aren't actually extinct, and he comes face to face with one, which is one of the best episodes of the series, it's really great because you see this guy sort of, again, fall into this raging sort of hatred and having to try and find a way to claw back out of it.
I would also go as far as saying with Dalek in particular, that one episode, it's one of the best bits of modern sci-fi I've seen because the Daleks themselves as a monster on Doctor Who had for a long time been the object of ridicule. Now, when they first turned up in the 60s, they were...
They got egg beaters on them!
Well, yeah, I know.
Plungers!
Yeah, but this is the thing. When they first turned up in the 60s, they were a really scary, very, very, very implacable beast. And over time, there's a law of diminishing returns, and they just become comical. And there's even a joke made by Tom Baker's Doctor in Destiny of the Daleks about the Daleks not being able to get upstairs. Now,
The bit with the stairs was great.
Yeah.
and
Love that bit.
And this is the thing. Dalek has an episode where you have one battered and broken Dalek being able to be an utterly and completely terrifying monster again because it wipes out an entire base all of its own. But also just as terrifying is, as you see, the Doctor's reaction to this, because this is the Doctor who is supposed to be the big hero figure and so on and so forth, and the first thing the Doctor wants to do is torture and maim and kill and utterly and completely destroy the Dalek with utter complete hatred.
And I like that from a couple of different perspectives because it links in with, I think, a couple of the reasons why I've never quite been able to get into Doctor Who. The first being the character of the Doctor himself. He's always come across to me as being a little bit Gary Stewish, in that he's always the centre of things. He always sort of knows more than everyone else in the room. No matter what happens, I never felt much tension in the previous shows because it always felt that everything was something he could handle, and he always knew more than his
everything's
adversaries.
going to work out fine. Smiles and sunshine.
Yeah, and when I'd watch in the past, he never seemed challenged. The show was all about him and almost sitcomish format. Because it felt to me the format of the show was really just, let's think of a bunch of crazy shit to throw at this character, and we watch how he deals with it.
And in fairness, with some of the stories, that would be a reasonable approach to it. Certainly some in the classic era of Who. There were also plenty of much more interesting and very cerebral ones, but it really depends on the era and the individual writer and the individual point in the season that you're at.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing as well, about that episode in particular I really loved is those scenes between the Doctor and the Dalek, where it's him and the Dalek in this room having a conversation. And because that's the other thing with Doctor Who, I've always found to be a bit unfocused, a bit scattershot. It's always, let's throw the craziest ideas we can all the time. And I loved how it just stripped it down to basically these two characters in a room, almost like a stage play, and let it play out. And I found that was a really good way in. And I think that's where I really started loving Eccleston's performance. Because he didn't go over the top with the dark stuff, but it was showing a Doctor who was fallible, who does fuck up, who does have flaws, but in an understandable way. You know what this creature represents.
Well, he's becoming he's getting that whole humanization to him. All humans, we fuck up, we do things wrong, we make mistakes.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, and this is something we find out much, much later on in New Who, at the end of the 50th anniversary, this is something whereby all of that stuff with regards to his actions in the Time War and what he's supposed to have done has almost literally just happened to Eccleston's Doctor. So it's in for him. It's in the very, very recent past, and with regeneration, every time, the Time Lord always regenerates, and they retain they retain their memories. But in many ways, it's like a complete death of personality, and they do literally die and are reborn throughout the whole process. So it's somebody, he remembers what's gone on, but there are fuzzinesses, and that's one of the reasons why it's supposed to never carry out. Sorry, I'm geeking out way too much on this sort of thing, but I will do because I know enough of the lore.
You see what I mean, people? See what I have to put up with?
Yeah.
See, right.
I've been watching Doctor Who my whole life too, but you don't see me ranting about it.
In fairness, you've been doing that a lot more than we did, because Australia was lucky. Australia had the ABC.
Yeah.
Now, Australia had the ABC, and they had it repeated all the time. I mentioned my friend Shinju earlier on. Doctor Who in the UK, apart from a few occasions, like many, many years later, where there'd be a special kind of run on BBC Two at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, Doctor Who was never repeated on terrestrial television in the UK, whereas it was on constantly on the ABC. So, Shinju, back in the 80s, back when they were not releasing lots of video box sets of Doctor Who, Shinju was having a friend from Australia who was recording things onto VHS cassettes and posting them over to the UK. So the amount of times where I was watching stuff in his halls of residence room in 1994 at Newcastle Uni, where I'm at Cav, and there'd be me and Shinju there watching, and sort of every so often we get like these, at the end of the episode you get the ABC channel announcer and the idents from the 80s and stuff. It's very, very surreal. But are you going to persevere with this?
Yeah.
Are you going to carry on?
Yeah, I am. I mean, look,
Did you watch, how much of that series did you watch? All
the first
episodes?
season.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
No, I mean, I enjoyed it. I did genuinely enjoy it. It didn't really sort of absolve all the problems I've had with it in the past, but ultimately, I mean, I did have a good time with it. I mean, there were aspects that dragged on me a bit.
What did you think of his companion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say...
we know.
I think they were batting for the shipping crowd like complete motherfuckers on this one.
Yeah.
It just... Because that was the thing. I didn't think the first episode was very good. And I thought the ending really sucked. Because, I mean, you've got this girl, right? This time travel appears out of nowhere, almost gets her killed. And her reaction at the end is go, okay, I'm dropping my entire life. And I'm just going to go and run with you.
In fairness to her on this one, it is you know what? I've got a time machine. Therefore, I can be back like 10 minutes after I left, which is dealt with later on in the series.
Yeah, and you know why she dropped all the people she loved her entire life and ran off with a strange alien guy who travels with time? Because she wanted to.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to. So Rose the Companion is played by Billy Piper, who is...
I hate you right now.
Yeah, if you've heard that song, you hate me too.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Some of you may remember her from her previous alter ego as pop star Billy from back in the 90s.
Actually, very good actress. She was great in Penny Dreadful.
Also, Secret Diary of a Call Girl.
Yeah.
And she's also very good in The Ruby and the Smoke, which is the Philip Pullman adaptation for the BBC. She is a very, very good actress. I think part of the issue with here is Rose... Most of us who are Doctor Who fans have a problematic relationship in our heads with Rose because she is a whiny, clingy girlfriend type who sticks around like a bad smell.
Well, I still think she's better than freaking Martha. I hate Martha.
Martha was left in a shitty position, and frankly, Freema Agyeman was very underwritten. Anyway, we are not going to get into this big debate now. That's for another episode.
My impression of Rose was that, I mean, obviously, because I think you were saying they filmed the first episode sometime before the rest of the series.
Well, I think that was done as a pilot almost.
Yeah. I think that they had to they decided they had to have her join the Doctor because he needed a companion.
Yeah.
And they sort of chucked that together for the pilot.
Yeah.
And then it went to a series and they went, actually, that was a bit shit. We've got to try and work this into... Because a lot of the series from there is then going into sort of trying to bring in some repercussions for her running. And I don't think they quite nailed it. I did find it kind of annoying by the end. And it did get quite melodramatic with all the shipping stuff.
No idea about melodramatic. You don't get to talk about melodramatic right now, Cav, until You've seen Beowulf Bay.
Wait till you get to the end of season 2 is all I'm going to say on that one.
Yeah.
But having said that, one of the other things I love about the new Who stuff is the casting of the guest casts. So we've got some really good people in there. So I mean, we've got John Barrowman turns up as Captain Jack, who he has his entire own spin-off of Torchwood. But we've also got Penelope Wilton is in there, Annette Badland is in there. I mean, we've got Patterson Joseph turning up later. The cameos from various different British TV personalities for like Davina McCall and Anne Robinson and Trinny and Susanna later on.
Simon
for their
Pegg
voices.
as well.
Simon Pegg is in there. So this is this is post Shaun of the Dead as well. So around about that time. But Tamsin Greig turns up as well.
Yeah.
Wait, who did you just say?
Tamsin Greig, who's Fran in Black Books.
No, I was trying to think of the guy, the master, who is in Human Traffic as
John
well.
Sim. Oh, that's for like several series later. But I'm thinking that's this first season.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah, even in this first season, you've got some really, really kind of top level, very good character actors who turn up to do the supporting cast stuff. And I mean, Camille Caudery does a really good I probably mangled her name completely. Turner's Rose's mum, Jackie. Now you might remember her best as the love interest in Nuns on the Run.
That's right, yeah.
Was that one of those ones where you're thinking, what was that?
Yeah, I was going, I know where she's from. No, I don't. I do.
And now Noel Clarke, who I think is a really, really interesting talent. Now, I'd already seen him previously in the rebooted Auf Wiedersehen Pet before this. And he is a very interesting guy to look out for anyway. I mean, he's a one-man film industry in the UK. He's written and directed a whole bunch of movies, and they've been successful movies as well. And he said himself with this, he turned up to the first kind of block of filming and he wasn't taking it too seriously and realised everyone else around him was. And then had a moment of, oh crap, I've got to up my game here, and so he did subsequently. And actually, the further you go on into his tenure on Doctor Who and his returns into Doctor Who throughout the series, he just keeps on. He keeps on improving, but also his character of Mickey has a lot more depth to him and a lot more to him.
That's good to hear because I liked him, but I felt he was underserved by the character. It felt a lot of times like they didn't really know what to do with him.
I think, again, what you've mentioned already about the idea of having the Doctor working best when they've got someone to play off. So, for example, there is a wonderful scene later on where you've got the Doctor and Blomfeld Foch of the family Slovene from Raxacorical Phalopatorius, they're basically out at the dinner, out at a restaurant in Cardiff.
That's right, yeah.
And it's those two who are just, as far as she knows, the Doctor is taking her back to her home planet where she will be put to death. And the Doctor has no problem because this is a callback to a previous episode where she tried to basically destroy the Earth and sell it off for slag along with the rest of her family. So there's this interesting conflict between the two characters of looking at that and seeing the implacable hatred, but also the pathos of the whole thing, and really, really beautifully played. I mean, again, Annette Badland is an excellent character actor. She's really good
she was
at
great. And I mean, they pulled it back pretty well with the Slovene characters. To be honest, their first episode I found kind of annoying.
Yeah.
So when she turns up again, of course, my first reaction is, "Oh fuck, here we go." But no, she was great, and they really did something interesting with the character.
Yeah.
And for me, again, I mean, it's again that situation of just that two-hander.
Yeah.
Like I found, I mean, the Doctor as well, I liked him more when it was just him and one other person.
Yeah.
It wasn't concepts flying all over the place. Because I think they don't completely nail it, but you can see the beginnings in that season of, we've found a different direction to take this character, and we're starting to feel it out. So, I mean, that alone will have me watching some more, because I did find that very interesting.
Cool bananas. Well, I'm very happy to hear that. Okay. Well, one final area, and that's mine. As those of you who've listened to Doom podcast, or our Doom podcast rather, will know, I'm not much of a one for computer games. Now, basically, this comes back to being back in the 90s and having played a lot of Doom and gradually getting more and more motion sickness and getting to the point where I felt sick if I was even on in the same room. Now, I kind of got it back when I lived in a household where we had an N64 and I was able to play likes of GoldenEye and Mario Kart. And GoldenEye, the engine was fine. I had no problem playing that as a first-person shooter. But for the most part, because I got put off by Doom, I never really kind of went further down the road of computer games. Except for now. I revisited something that I last played around about 20 years ago when I was going out with a very strange American goth girl called Karina, who, Have any of you guys seen Escape from LA?
Yeah.
You know the Latina chick in that who you basically Karina looked a little bit like that, but really, really, really white. Same haircut and everything.
Okay.
The jacket. It was kind of weird. This was a girl who dumped me for not being a fairy in a previous life, so we're not going to go there any further. But she had a laptop and she had a very old version of Civilization, and I got really, really addicted to it. And yes, Civilization is the game that these guys insisted that I play.
Well, do you want to be a little bit more clear on which Civ that
Yes,
you play?
specifically we were doing Civilization 5, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's the actually it's the Game of the Year edition. So it's Civilization 5 plus all the expansions.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Because pick that one because I mean with the Civ games, usually the expansions add a lot to it and clean up a lot of stuff. So usually the version with all the expansions is usually the best
Yeah.
of the lot. So it was sort of, we want to be sure to give you Prime Civ.
And to be quite honest with you, I haven't played enough of it yet, but that doesn't mean I haven't played it. That just means I really haven't played enough. I've got to play more. I've got to play more. I've got to play more. Oh, God, I've got to play more. Seriously, I can see myself becoming almost dangerously addicted to this game. It's really, really good.
Yeah, it's like crack.
Well, it's also one of the reasons why I mentioned the previous version of Civilization from 20 years ago, because in all honesty, there's not that much difference between the two of them. That is not meant as any kind of a criticism. One of the reasons why I really liked the game 20 years ago was because of the fact that it was really it was complex. There were a lot of different variables. You could do a lot of things. The world building worked. The process by which you started off and then gradually built your world all worked really well for me. And I was really, really impressed by the whole damn thing. And this game has all of that, but more. So it's got all of the playability. It's a really, really complex game. I mean, you do have the diplomacy is much more intense this time around because there's a lot more detail to it. But you still have the same thing of you start off very, very primitive and you build your tech and you build your research and you build over time, and that's how it's fascinating stuff. One of the reasons why these guys chose this for me is my background is history. Now, I have a degree in history from Newcastle University. I trained as a history teacher in the UK. Over here in Australia, I work as a humanities and an English teacher. I also teach VCAL at the moment. But history is very much my background in terms of my education and training. And I absolutely love this because of this. I mean, granted, obviously, this is Civilization as a game, so you're not really going to have Boudica of the Celts interacting with Alexander the Great. But what they've done is basically picked several kind of notable historical figures and put them as the head of wherever the particular civilization. And it's a competitive game of sorts. But it's, the depth in which it goes to. And it's a beautiful thing. It is a really, really, really pretty game to watch. The mechanics of everything, the use of music as well.
Yeah.
And
music's fantastic.
It's the fact that for the most part, most of the background music is fairly kind of, we've got this really nice kind of interesting computer. Oh, hang on a minute, that's New World. So they've got Dvorak's New World Symphony. The Death of Asa from Peer Gynt comes in there. So you get kind of these moments of classical music, which for snatches of well-known tunes that will turn up, and it's like, oh, hang on, I know that. Oh, that's wonderful. Hang on, didn't that used to be the Hovis advert? That kind of thing. And so it's honestly, it's a very, very... I can't thank you enough on this one. This is a really beautiful game that I intend to very much explore as much as possible. Other interesting thing, I was playing this the other day. My housemate Kyle is an avid gamer. Spends a large amount of his time playing various different games, and he came and was like, oh, this, and started giving me various different kind of hints and advice as to what I could possibly do. And I think I will be mining his kind of brain for a few more interesting paths to take in the future, because even though in the first couple of games I've played, I feel I've done okay, but I've been kind of scratching around in the dark without a clear idea of what path to take. I've gone, well, that looks, yeah, I'll try this and this and this and this and this, and that seems to be going okay there. I haven't got any really big fights with other virtual players on the computer yet, but I'm sure that'll be interesting.
Yeah, how many players are you actually, AIs are you actually playing against?
God knows, lots, I think.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about Civ 5 is the actual AI in it, because it is designed to operate on 4 different levels, and those 4 levels work together. So there's the tactical AI, there's an operational one, there's a strategic one, and a grand one. These all go for different points. So one controls individual units, one is like for the war front, one's like the end game thing, one looking after the empire, and these 4 AIs work together to determine how to beat the game against you. So that's really interesting. Like, that's when I'm playing it, that's always things that I'm looking out for and checking out to see, right, so if I do this, is this AI going to do the same thing again if I do it again later, or do it like a little bit of tweaking with something else?
See, it's not something I would necessarily even notice, because like I said, at the moment it's very much well, I think in my historian's head this seems to be the logical path to go down. I suppose I need that. I'm going to need that. And how am I going? So I'm scrabbling around in the dark trying to put things together as best as possible, and I'm doing okay. But I suspect, correct me if I'm wrong, you two are much more seasoned gamers than me. Is it generally a feature of most games to, if you've got an AI opponent of any description, whether it be like in Civ or in Mario Kart, is it generally, do most games tend to have the AI opponent play roughly to the same level as whoever is playing?
Well, it depends on the game. Like, when you do certain games, you can set your AI level. Like, you can go, oh, I just want to play against someone who's easy and I want to beat them. Or you can upgrade it. Whereas in this one, like in Civ, with the AI, the leaders of the different countries and stuff, they all have like a different kind of personality. So they aren't just, oh, this is easy and this is hard.
Yeah.
They've each got their own separate kind of
See,
goals.
I've already been told
how
don't
they
piss.
react.
I've already been told don't piss off Alexander.
Yeah. Whereas with other games with like AI, like I found that they don't have those kinds of personalities. It's just like you have a skill level and that's it. Whereas Civ 5 takes it a little bit further by having like, you know, those 4 levels and then a personality that combines as well. I think there's like 26 different ones that can all kind of mesh together.
I am going to love this game.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I mean, what you got to understand as well is that the way Civ plays, you're playing on sort of several different plateaus at once.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you've got sort of the society building side, and you've got your cultural stuff and your military stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, the goals of the game, you can go for one of several victories. You
Like,
can,
I'm not a huge war person.
Yeah.
Like, also in Civ 5, they've changed it so, you know, the armies that you build, they actually take longer to build than what they do in the previous games, which is something that I personally didn't like, because I like moving through and exploring stuff, and, you know, it would take too long, and then I'd be like, oh, come on, just get it together, I want to go do stuff right now.
Yeah.
I like building up my cities and making sure that they're, you know, everyone's happy and they all have theatres and they have, like, you know, the wonders of the world and all my towns and cities are all connected by the railroads and everyone can get around
again,
really
I'm doing
easily,
really well with that so far.
Yeah, and that we've got all the farmland and things like that. So that's the kind of development that I like doing. But I also make sure that my technology is up to date and up to scratch.
Yeah.
So if someone does decide that they want to come and take me on, I'll just nuke the fucking suckers.
Yeah, and you've got this AI who are operating on all these different levels as well. There's kind of this thing where everyone's sort of reaching towards these multiple goals.
Yeah.
And often the AI, you know, isn't what you think they're going to be. Like Gandhi.
Yeah.
Watch out for Gandhi, he's a prick. You do find it actually, and quite often an AI can completely screw you out, and they don't actually have to attack you.
No.
You could get in shit with another civilization. They just have to go, nope, not interested.
I have. See, again,
up.
I've not really done much. I've tried doing a little bit of kind of bombarding and warlike behaviour towards smaller city-states, but I've generally had everyone go, don't do that, we don't like you.
Yeah, like the diplomacy that goes on in this game is really weird, because it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't like this dude, he's giving me the shits. He's small enough, I'll take him out, but you don't realise, because you haven't discovered another civilization yet, that they're allied with this big-ass motherfucker who's now going to come after you because you picked on the small guy.
So basically, Gavrilo Princip has just killed your Archduke. You think, I could take Serbia, fucking come on. Oh, hello, Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I clearly have a wonderful journey ahead of me. Thank you. The pair of you.
I think the sign of some of the best video games, especially strategy games, is that you feel like you're creating your own story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel like you're building
Yeah,
your own
really.
narrative, that you're a character in the game yourself, and Civ does that masterfully.
I will say this as well. I mean, I've only watched it the first time when I first booted it up, but the cutscene at the beginning, the introduction scene, is beautiful, and the score is incredible. It's really, really beautifully done. I mean, this is very high-end stuff, and I very much appreciate it.
I love Civ. Like, I've been playing it since Civ. Like, I remember in high school.
Well, this would be the
Right.
same one I was talking about.
Yeah,
with
like, you know, you've got
yeah.
little squares
Yeah.
and like, and we
You
had
start
it.
off. The best one to start off is you start off being the Incas or the Aztecs
Yeah.
or what have you.
Well, we had it on the computers at school. I don't know how we got it on there, but everyone was playing it
Yeah.
during their breaks and whatever. And, you know, we'd always have a giggle when
You
the
had
thing would
nerdy
pop
teachers.
up that'd go, "The citizens are revolting." 'Cause-
They've always been revolting.
Yeah, and you know, you'd see the little parade go
Yeah.
by. Like, I loved that, and like then in further on,
Bread and circuses, mate. Bread
Yeah.
and circuses.
you know, there was like you could update your throne room and like change it the way that you want it to be and stuff. So that was really cool for me. And like these more recent games, you get to dig deeper into your civilization and explore it a little bit more, and it's got so much replayability as well because you can because how the AI works, it's a different game every time you do it, and you know you can set up, you know, how much land do you want, or water, do you want like archipelago? Is that archipelago?
Archipelago.
Yep, that's the one I want. See, it's always been wrong in my head. But it's not just you turn it on, game boots up, we do the same thing over and over and over again. It's like, no, every time it can be
Yeah.
completely different.
Well,
just because
yeah.
you've decided to explore left rather than
Yeah.
right, you got a whole different game.
Well, there are two games on there at the moment I've got. So I've got a Boudica of the Celts is the one I've
Yeah.
been mainly playing. But the first time I tried to have a look at it and got a bit lost in around this, I ended up being randomly selected as Genghis Khan. And it was great. And it was a, hang on. So, okay. So it's So you could be just about any different person anytime you set up a new single-player game.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Definitely.
I-
And playing as different civilizations has their own like
Yeah.
perks as well. You know, these ones are better at this and those
Yeah.
are better at that. And you know, you can explore that as well, and you know, doing the whole building of relationships or going at it on your own. And I love it. I really do. And you can lose yourself in it for absolutely
Oh, I know.
hours and hours.
I've already
and
seen that.
hours. It's like The Sims when you're like, oh, I'll just whip up a quick character. No, you won't. You're going to be there for 5 hours trying to get the nose right, and you
You're gonna
won't
have
even
bed
realize.
sores.
You won't even realize how much time you've lost.
Yeah. Prepare to spend the next 6 weeks just stressing over how the hell to get happiness back up in your city.
Yeah. Jesus.
There's always been sort of every version of Civ. I think that's always been the one that's gotten me is happiness.
I've never had too much of a problem, but that's partly because of the fact that I make damn sure that there's granaries and there's farms.
Oh, when you start getting upgrades and stuff, and you're like in the Steel Age, and there's like, you know, pollution everywhere, and then there's toxic.
Oh, we haven't reached that yet.
There's toxic waste and stuff, and
Yeah, then it gets very difficult to manage.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to go a bit nuts when I get there. I'm looking forward to it, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be an interesting challenge.
We should probably see if we could get together and play a multiplayer.
What if you could?
against
Can
each
you
other.
do,
do
can
that,
you do
yeah.
it online?
Yeah,
Yes.
Civ 5 you can.
Oh, see that I would go for that. I
think-
will happily sign up for a game against you two, and you will whoop my ass something chronic.
I've never actually played Civ multiplayer, so
Neither
I'm
have
up for
I.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Never done it. I'm so happy that you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Because Civ was always just a big part of my gaming experience as well
I
growing
think
up.
you guys obviously you guys know what my background is, and so you've chosen very well with this. So the game itself has been just absolutely perfect as a choice. It's a whole new sandbox to explore, and I'm really excited about that.
And just when you get used to this one, they'll bring out a new one.
It's a couple of months actually, Civ 6.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think that might be something that one of you two will probably put a little bit of a review in a future podcast. Okay,
Probably, yeah.
so
Rock,
that's
paper, scissors
yeah.
for it.
yeah, Rochambeau.
Oh, I'll win for sure.
Oh, come on, we'll both wind up getting it. Right? Just tag team.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, I think that just about wraps it up for this podcast. Next time round, we will be, I think we're going to be having a whole podcast built around the idea of Tetris. So we've got a few things to look at with regards to that. Meanwhile, Cav, where can we find you?
Okay, so I can be read in Metro Magazine.
Chani.
You can find me ranting about all the things that I love or hate on Twitter under Prima, or you can come watch me and my gaming adventures on YouTube.
And as with all of us, myself, you can get on the There Will Be Geek podcast group, and otherwise kind of go to the There Will Be Geek page on Facebook. Now, the music tonight, as ever, is performed by the Vivisectors. I think there's only one thing left for us to say, really. We're finished!